Now, what I want to clarify for you is the phrase Jew and Gentile never appears anywhere in the Bible. Jew and Gentile. Jew appears a lot because it's mistranslated. But wherever you see Gentile, it's a bad translation. So let me show you what the problem is. All Israelites formed an in-group. This in-group they recognized as consisting of three parts: Galileans, Judeans, and Pereans. Perea is the area across the Jordan River, nowadays called Jordan. So these are the three groups. If you look in the Gospel of Matthew, these are the three groups that make up the house of Israel. In fact, in Matthew's Gospel, that's where Jesus is always headed. To the house of Israel, I'm looking for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. The house of Israel is how they call themselves. And when they call themselves this, they distinguish Judeans from Galileans and Pereans. That's inside language. Outsiders said a Judean is a Judean is a Judean. So when the outsider Pilate wrote the sign for Jesus' crucifix, notice that people didn't object and say, don't put down Judean, he's a Galilean. We all know he's from Galilee. No, they recognized Pilate's not going to discriminate and distinguish. For him, one Judean is like another Judean. They're all Judeans because they all worship that God Yahweh whose temple is in Judea. So that's where their allegiance is, to that temple in Judea. They're all Judeans. So outgroups, they tend to do this all the time. They have a rather narrow perspective and just use that one word. So that's where the difficulty comes from. So when Paul, if you look, for instance, take a look at Romans 3:9. What then? Are we Jews any better off? No, not at all, but I have already charged that all men, both Jews and Greeks, are under the power of sin. So I'm reading from the Revised Standard Translation, but very likely whatever translation you are reading is the same, right? And when I said there, are we Jews any better off? You all have Jews, presumably. What should it be? All right, so now with your pencils, you got to go crossing out all those Jews in your Bible and put down Judeans, Judeans. Okay, now the next one. We have already charged that all men, both Jews and Greeks. Well, now, as a matter of fact, Greece did not exist as Greece at that time. But the English word is Hellene, Hellene. Or you may have heard this word Helenists. The synonym for that is civilized. These are cultured, civilized people. They observe civilized practices. They speak a language of some sort, but it's civilized. So everything I have there, Hellenes would be a person who was cultivated, not necessarily or exclusively Greek, and it should not be translated Greek, who spoke a common Hellenic language, the one that Alexander spread all over the world when he conquered in 300 BC, who practiced some Macedonian or Athenian or increasingly Roman customs. Macedon, as you know, is the northern part of Greece, right? And Athens is in the southern part, right? Okay. And Rome, you know where Rome is. So these were looked to as civilization centers. People who came from these areas were civilized. They were respected as civilized, intelligent people, and they behaved in what was considered a cultivated lifestyle. So when Paul is writing like Jews and Greeks, he's talking about Judeans and Hellenes. The best one that I want, go to 1 Corinthians 1:24. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ is the power of God and the wisdom of God. So my translation has those who are called Jews and Greeks. Probably have that too. Yeah, that is based on a very bad reading of a Greek manuscript. There are some Greek manuscripts that actually use that word, but the best Greek manuscripts, and I do have my Greek test, but it doesn't make sense for us to look at it, but in my Greek footnotes, in my Greek text, it tells you that that's simply bad. The translator made a bad choice of a bad Greek word. The proper Greek word is the proper word for Hellenists or Hellenes. So Paul is writing to Israelites and Hellenes. Stumbling block to Israelites. What does this mean? I'm preaching that Jesus is Messiah. What am I preaching about it? That he was crucified. Well, that's nonsense. That God raised him from the dead. That's fabulous. That's spectacular, but bull. And so so Paul says, yes, it's a stumbling block to you Judeans. You don't get it. You have rejected him as Messiah. And you civilized people, not any better off. You don't think any better of this either. All right. The main point is Israelites and Hellenes, or Israelites and non-Israelites, but not Gentiles and certainly not Greeks. Okay, this is a tough one. Any questions about it? All right. It's just a question of getting accustomed to this new terminology and new way of thinking about it.